Houston. Houston, we have a problem. DJ Apollo has landed. I repeat, DJ Apollo has landed at Hitmix 88.9 WEIU.
Welcome to the Tales of Music and Film podcast. My name is DJ Apollo, and I just want to say, I hope you had a very excellent Easter, because at the time that I am recording this, yesterday was Easter Sunday. I had a fantastic weekend. I got to go home Saturday night, and I got to spend a very amazing Easter with my family. Saturday, my dad grilled out, and it was a much-needed break from school. At the time that I am recording this as well, I am down to my final 3 weeks before I graduate from Eastern Illinois University, and this is going to mark episode number 46. Crazy to believe that after this session's over, I'm only going to be doing this session 2 more times, and then that's it. I'll be at 60 recordings, and I will graduate, so we are nearing the end, ladies and gentlemen. We are not quite there yet, so let's keep having ourselves some good old-fashioned fun. So I just want to say, hope you're having an excellent day as well, and I just want to say thank you for tuning in to this recording. And today, we are talking about yet another movie, but this is another one that I just watched on Saturday night with my mom. As I mentioned last week, that her and I have this new thing we do now, where every weekend we have a movie night, where we watch 1 or 2 slasher films, if you will, or like thriller stuff. And the movie in question that we are going to be discussing today is Valentine. It was released on February 2nd, 2001. Director Jamie Blanks, who also directed Urban Legend, which I also covered. The screenplay was written by Donna Powers, Gretchen Jayberg, Wayne Powers, and Aaron Harberts. The story was written by Tom Savage. The movie had a budget of anywhere between $10 million and $29 million. And the movie went on to make only $36.7 million. So it made just over its money back. So it wasn't like, a hit or anything, but it wasn't a failure either. This is just another one of those, I guess you would call it like a sleeper hit that went very low under the radar. And I think it didn't get enough attention, but this movie was very different compared to other slasher films that I've seen, and I had a lot of fun with this one. My mom had seen this before, like way back when it first came out, so we had a really good time watching this. I enjoy our movie nights. I love that we do that now. Like someday I want to start a YouTube channel and just call it like Movie Nights with Mom. That'd be like the funnest thing in the whole world. I would love that. That'd be a very fun project. But before we go any further, this is something I like to do. Here's a quick little story summary of what's going down in this picture. Love is in the air. On the most romantic day of the year, would-be lovers woo hearts with flowers, candy, cards, and gifts. Best friends Kate, played by Marley Shelton, Paige, played by Denise Richards, Dorothy, played by Jessica Capshaw, Lily, by Jessica Cofield, and Shelley, played by Katherine Heigl, are young women looking for a relationship, a Valentine to die for, and this year they might just get their wish. And that's the quick little summary of what the plot is about. There's a lot to go into on this picture, so I'm very excited, and I will put in the beginning at this time that if you have not seen this movie yet, spoiler warning, I will be covering the entire story on what happens, so I recommend that you check this film out, because for me, it's out there with Urban Legend, where it's like these sleeper hits that deserve way more attention than what they got. This is a very different kind of slasher film, and I want to explain why at this very moment. But before we go any further, I'm going to give a quick little brief summary. Well, not just that. I'm just going to go through the names of our main cast in this film. So first of all, we have David Boreanaz, who played Angel in the Buffy TV show, and I looked him up. This film, Valentine, was like one of his only like big films that he did. Everything else that I found, he was just in a bunch of other like very low budget like B movie stuff that I never even heard of before. But the highlights of his career were the TV shows he did, like the show Bones that he did for like over a decade, and then Buffy, and then his spinoff show Angel. But he was very good in this film. And up next, we got my Hollywood crush, Denise Richards, one of the greatest actresses from the 90s. Man, she was amazing in this as well. It was so cool to finally get to see her in a film finally. This is my first film that I've seen with Denise Richards. She'll always be my Hollywood crush. But I haven't seen her. There's other films with her I was wanting to check out. Like, I have seen Starship Troopers. That's a very good one. I love Starship Troopers. And so I take it back. This is not my first, my second. But Starship Troopers, another great film to check out. She also did Wild Things in '98. Then she was also in a James Bond movie. I believe it was called The World Is Not Enough. So she's done some other stuff, but I haven't seen those. But she was very good in this. And then up next, we have Katherine Heigl, Marley Shelton, Jessica Capshaw, Jessica Cofield, and Danielle Cosgrove. And that's the main cast for this movie. I gotta say, though, man, this film, just like Urban Legend, had a very strong cast. I think everybody involved in this did an absolute great job. And this film, I'm telling you, it really surprised me, especially the ending, which I cannot wait to get into. Now, my first overall thoughts on this film was it's very like early 2000s, but that's not a bad thing. This one was a lot different because, first of all, man, the editing style in this one's a lot more different compared to like Urban Legend. And the cast in this film, like Urban Legend, had a good cast of characters that were at the very least likable. Unfortunately, in Valentine, most of the cast in this film are not good people. The story revolves around these group of girls who have been friends since they were like, in 7th grade or something. And the movie opens up with this 7th, 8th grade dance going on, and there's this one boy who's walking around constantly asking if any of the girls want to dance with him, and every single one of them were rude to him. Like, I'm talking like these girls were as rude as humanly possible towards him. And then eventually he asks this one girl if he wants to dance. She's like, sure, but you can tell she's not interested in any way, shape, or form. But she was sitting all by herself on the bleachers, and she was just kind of like, all right, sure, why not? No one else is asking. So it wasn't even like she wanted to. She just said yes because he was the only one that was asking her. So it's like right off the bat, she's like, none of these girls are likable. The girl that he asked to dance with was Jessica Capshaw's character, and they go off and start dancing for a little bit, and then they go in the back behind the bleachers to start making out. And then these group of guys show up and start bullying the boy. Then Jessica's character, steps back, and then the boys start picking her. Like, what are you doing? You could be doing so much better. Why are you making out with this weirdo? And then she's like, he forced me to. He attacked me. Like, she's lying. And the boy's like, you attacked her? Then they just gang up on him and start beating him up. They tear his clothes off of him until he's in his underwear, and they drag him out in the middle of the dance floor and start beating the crap out of him. And first of all, I'm just like, where are the adults? Where is the adults? Like, they're in the middle of the dance floor, and this kid's getting beat up over a lie. It's just like, dude, like, the film has a very horrible opening. I felt so bad for this child. I'm like, what the heck is wrong with these kids? On top of that, I want to take a little step back for a minute. It's just like the girls that he asked to dance. I want to get into this later, but they're all killed off throughout the course of the film in the ways that they responded to his question if they wanted to dance with him. But I'll get into more into that in a minute. So after this whole thing happens, there's this giant time jump of like 15 years later or something like that. The girls are all like in their mid-20s, late 20s by this point. They're all living their lives. They're still friends and everything. And we cut to Kate Daves, played by Marley Shelton, who, fun fact, she played Judy Hicks, Officer Judy Hicks, in Screams 4 and 5. So the whole time Mom and me were watching the movie, I kept calling her Judy Hicks because she will always be Judy Hicks to me. But her and her friend Paige Prescott, funny enough, who's played by Denise Richards. They were at a restaurant hanging out together, and Kate went through a recent breakup because she was dating Adam, who's played by David Boreanaz, and Denise's character is trying to help her find, a new guy today because she thinks that things aren't going to work out between her and Adam. So she does a couple of blind dates, and she disliked both of them. So they decide to leave the restaurant, and have some more fun. And after that, we cut to Catherine Heigl's character, who is working in a morgue, getting ready to cut open a dead body, and then she hears a noise. So, the classic cliche, leaves by herself, to go check out the noise, and then it's just a colleague she knows getting ready to leave, and she goes back into the room. And dude, I felt so good about this moment. She goes back into the room, like getting ready to pick out the sharp utensil. I lean over to Mom. I tell her the killer switched bodies, and now the killer is underneath the sheet. And lo and behold, the body falls out of a fridge behind her, and then the killer is underneath the sheets, and he runs off, and she tries to get out of the building, but the killer chases her down. She tries to hide inside the morgue room, inside one of the body bags, but the killer finds her and stabs her, and then seals the bag back shut. And I like this little shot where the camera pans down, and you see her blood dripping through this tube into a tray because, when corpses show up, they have to drain them of the blood. So it's like, oh, dude, that was crazy. And a little detail about the killer. Every time he kills one of his victims, blood comes out of his nose. So, here's the other creepy part. The killer wears, this jumpsuit, kind of like Michael Myers from Halloween, but he wears this real creepy Valentine's Day mask, and so you never see who it is the entire time, and you just see blood pouring out of the mask nose every time he kills someone. So after that happens, the girls get the news, and they're trying to figure out, what's happening, who would kill her. And the police are trying to figure it out too. So they get the friends together, trying to tell them, we think that the killer is one of you guys's. So this film right off the bat is kind of possibly going the Scream route of the killer is in your friend group. But the movie does this for a little while, but then towards the end, it pulls a full 360 on this whole concept in the best way. So all the friends get together to have a funeral for Catherine's character, and then it's at the funeral that we meet Adam, and Kate and him chat for a little bit, and you find out the reason that Kate and Adam split was because, theoretically they have not split up. They're on quote break because Adam has a drinking problem, and apparently Adam got very abusive and mean when he was drunk. So Kate said, either you get sober or you're losing me. So he tells her that he quit drinking. He's trying to get things figured out. So, and she's giving him as much time as he needs to get his act cleared out before she gets back with him again. And the whole time, you don't really, I guess, suspect him. He helps Kate as much as he can throughout the portion of the film. But, it's open game. It could literally be anybody. So the film continues, and over the course of the film, more of the girls are killed. We get this really weird scene about halfway through the film where the girls get together and they go to this art museum of all these visual representations of sexual behavior. It's weird. The film has a lot of weird moments in it. Just FYI, there is a lot of weirdness in this. one of the girls gets split off for everybody else. She's mad because a guy that she liked, he was not a good dude, and he just liked sleeping around with as much women as possible. So she's frustrated, trying to find the exit, and then she walks into a room, and the killer is waiting for her, and her death was like extremely over the top. And the character's name is Lily, and she's another girl of the friend group. And she gets lost, and then out of nowhere, she turns around and she gets shot in the chest with a bow and arrow. I'm not kidding. The killer is waiting for her to enter the room, and he shoots her like 3 times with a bow and arrow, and then she falls through a window, and she falls like 10 stories into a dumpster, and the lid closes. And here's the funny part. Her body is never discovered. We never hear about her ever again. After she's killed, her body is never found by the cops, like, ever. I'm like, how the heck was her body never found? But anyway, that's how she kicks the dust. And then later on in the film, there was this really disgusting moment where Denise's character and Marley Shelton's character, they're back at her apartment, you know, hanging out. And Kate finds this Valentine's Day gift at her front door. She eats one of the chocolates, and it had maggots inside of it. Like, oh my God, man, that scene was... There was something about that, just like, ugh, it was so gross. And here was another cool part. Here's something else I forgot to mention. Before each girl is killed by the killer sent out to all of his victims these cards with like these Valentine's Day quotes inside of them with like hidden messages that you have to find. And it's either something like very rude or very like disturbing. And I thought that was a nice little like detail that the killer does. So after this happens, you know, everybody's starting to get suspicious of one another. That's when Jessica Capshaw's character reveals that, you know, she's been lying for over a decade now about, you know, the fact that the cops find out that the guy who's going after them was the boy that tried to ask them all to dance at that dance. And, you know, Jessica reveals to the other friends that she's been lying this whole time, that she was not attacked by him in any way, shape, or form. He didn't do anything to her, but she defends herself, saying that, well, she thinks that he deserved it, and that, you know, you guys are all popular. I was the fat chick, and I was so embarrassed. I couldn't do the right thing. Like, why would I do that? You know, it's just like she comes up with every excuse imaginable. It's like you find out this boy's life was ruined. The boy's name is Jeremy Melton, and you find out. So the cops do a background check on him, and due to Jessica's character lying about what happened, he was sent to reform school, and then he was sent to jail on, like, you know, on assault charges. So like this guy's life was completely ruined because, universe forbid, you do the right thing and say, hey, I lied. It's like, my gosh, man. And this kind of goes back to what I'm saying earlier. It's just like all these girls are not good people. When they find out who, like, you know, who Jeremy is, they all remember, and they have nothing but the worst things to say about him. You know, a decade later, they still talk bad about him. All these girls, except for Kate, she's the only good one out of the group. Everybody else is all about, you know, their image and how many, it's like they're all just players wanting to sleep with as much guys as possible. Like, these women are not good people. They don't think about their actions or the consequences. Like, they don't care. Kate's the only one who tries to help people and see the good in them. Like, she's the only character, in my opinion, in the whole film who's actually likable. Whenever when these girls are killed, I find it very difficult to be sympathetic towards them, because it's just like they weren't really, you know, good people. Denise Richards' character was kind of nice in some cases, but she wasn't really good either. So she was like a 50-50. But this film is kind of like the Friday the 13th films that came out in the 80s, cast-wise, where it's like you're not really rooting for these characters like at all. It's like you want the killer to kill these people in the worst ways humanly possible. And it's like, man, the killer has a lot of creative depths in this film, like poor Denise Richards. So we're gonna cut to the finale here for a minute. So they have a giant party at one of the friends' houses who comes from a rich family, and it's Jessica's character. And Denise has bad luck with this guy that she kind of liked, and she's in a hot tub on the bottom level of the house all by herself, and the killer out of nowhere shuts the cover over the tub, so now she's drowning, and he gets a drill and starts drilling holes into the pool cover. So she's trying to dodge him while he's doing this, and he nails her in the shoulder, and she starts bleeding. And then he opens the cover back up, and he throws the drill into the tub, and then Denise gets electrocuted to death. Just like, bro, that whole scene was just as over the top as you could get. It was just like, whoa. Completely nuts. And one of the other girls later on in the film, she gets chased down by the Valentine's Day killer, and he grabs her, throws her through a glass window, and then drags her back over, and then picks her head up and smashes it into glass. Like, oh my gosh, like Mom and I both freaked out at that. We were just like, oh my gosh, it was just, oh, that was a lot. So we cut back to the party, and Kate's character finds Adam drinking. So that makes her mad. She runs off trying to find her friends. Then she finds Denise's body in the pool. Then she finds her other friend that was killed horrifically. So, of course, Kate starts freaking out. She's just like, what the heck is going on? So she tries to call, the cop guy who's been giving them updates on, the situation. And she's outside, and then out of nowhere, she hears a phone ringing. She walks for a little bit out into, like, the patio area when it has a little river next to it. And then she finds the cop's phone. And then his head comes floating up out of the little river, and it's just, that was like extremely over the top. But I'm so happy the camera did not zoom in on that head for too long, because dude, it was the most obvious fake looking head I've ever seen in my life. The thing literally looked like a rubber head they filled up with air. It looked so fake. If you paused it and stared at it for more than 5 seconds, you could tell just like how fake it was. I found that to be extremely funny. So, Kate's freaking out. She runs back into the house. And earlier, a friend of Jessica mentioned to her that her dad had a gun in her office. So Kate finds Jessica's character's dad's office, and she tries to find the pistol. She finds it. It's a 9mm, carries 16 rounds. Well, it's a 15-round clip, but you gotta count for the one in the chamber. So she has 16 rounds. She's walking around the house with it. She finds Adam, and then Adam's like acting like all strange because and then she thinks that he's the killer. So she runs away. She throws objects at him, and she eventually smashes a vase on his head. And then she runs down the staircase, and the killer shows up in the outfit and mask, grabs her. They come falling down the staircase, and then the killer gets up. Then Adam shows up, grabs the gun, and unloads like the entire clip into the killer. Adam walks up, yanks the mask off of it, and guess who the killer is? It was Dorothy, played by Jessica Capshaw, and I'm so confused right now at this point, And then, Adam calls the police. They're on their way. Kate apologizes to him, thinking that he was the killer. The two of them embrace, hugging each other. You know, Adam's all like, "I love you, Kate. I always will. I'm sorry for screwing up." You know, it's happily ever after, right? And then you see blood drip down on Kate's cheek. She doesn't see it. Her eyes are closed. There is blood falling out of Adam's nose. Then it just cuts to black and the credits start rolling. Dude, I couldn't believe it. It took my brain like a hot minute to really fully, you know, realize what just happened, you know, and it took me a while to think about it. I'm just like, dude, the killer won straight up. And I gotta be honest, like, don't be mad at me for this. I was rooting for him. I had a theory in the back of my head that he was the killer, but I was worried that it would be too obvious. But the way they did it was so cool. Like, it was Adam. And just to explain why I'm rooting for it, Adam was the boy who got bullied at the dance back at the beginning of the film. He had his name changed and he had plastic surgery done to himself to hide his identity, so none of the girls knew. So he got revenge on all the girls, and it was hinted at, I believe, that he went after and killed the boys who beat him up at the dance. So he got revenge on everybody who ruined his life. And dude, I gotta be honest, for the film, after I really thought about it, I was rooting for him the entire time. Like, talk about your past, you know, creeping up on you. Like, these girls were trying to live, you know, their lives. They all knew they did horrible things, and they did not care, and they didn't care in any way, shape, or form. But Adam made sure to remind them how badly they screwed up, man. But yeah, I was rooting for him, man. This was like one of the first times that I've seen a scary film where the killer wins. Like, you don't see that very often. But man, the writing for that whole scene was just, oh, it was so good. I loved it. And that was one heck of an ending. Then I made a joke to Mom at the end of it saying that, and then Kate's character finds out that Adam's the killer, has him arrested, and she moves to Woodsboro for a fresh start. She becomes a cop. It's just, it's like, hey, it all worked out for her. Don't worry. But man, it was so cool getting to see her in another scary movie. But yeah, everybody, all the actors in this film did an amazing job. Like, everybody, like, the cast in this was great. The characters weren't likable, but the actors brought their A game in this. This was really good. And I want to give a little brief mention. The music for this was really good too. It really was. Like, this had one of those like very early 2000s, you know, soundtracks. And the film does feel like a 90s film a lot in some instances, which isn't a bad thing. And I guess like one negative I would definitely have to talk for a minute about is there is a lot of weird moments in this where you're kind of like, why is this in here? Like, there's literally a scene where Kate's character is in her apartment and her water shuts off and she has soap in her hair and she has somewhere important to be. So she dunks her head in the toilet bowl water. I'm just like, why is this scene here? I don't get it. I just found that to be kind of, well, okay, that happened. And then going back to the party at the end of the film, the guy that Denise she wasn't really into him, but this guy was like desperate to get attention for a woman. So she takes him upstairs. He undresses in front of her in a bedroom, and she acts like she's interested. And then she ties him to the bed, and then she grabs one of the candles and dumps the candle substance onto him, and then she just leaves the room. I was cringing like so hard during this whole scene. To say that whole scene was awkward it is a complete understatement. But yeah, those are just a couple of examples I wanted to think up. There were other moments in this film where I thought was very weird. But overall, I think this film was very, very good. I highly recommend you go check it out. It has a great story. I think it has very clever writing. And the twist at the end of it was like, I was not expecting that in any way, shape, or form. Man, I'm going to jump back for a minute. I want to go back to a talking point that I mentioned earlier in the recording. So A cool thing that the writers did with this film is that when each girl is killed, they're killed about how they responded to Adam when he asked them to dance with him at the dance. So the first girl says that in your dreams. So how does she die? She gets killed doing her dream job of working in the morgue, an oddly weird dream job, but she gets killed doing her dream job. And then one girl who was played by Denise Richards, she goes, "I would rather be electrocuted." And what happens to her? She gets electrocuted in the pool. And another girl said something else. I think the girl that gets killed with the bow and arrow, I believe she said something like, "I'd rather be impaled" or something. And what happens to her? She gets impaled 3 times with bow and arrows and falls to her death. So like each girl dies in the way of what they said at that dance when they were kids. I thought that was a very clever little writing detail. That was very cool. But that is going to wrap it up for the covering of the film Valentine. I highly recommend this film. It's a very good watch. It's very good, and I hope you enjoyed this recording, and I will see all of you in the next one. Till next time, I'm DJ Apollo, and you are listening to the Tales of Music and Film.